All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the actionable ways to review your clients' websites. My name is Greg Bohl, and we're excited to have Ken Stoner join us for today's workshop. Ken is the lead business advisor with the Illinois Small Business Development Center at Southern Illinois University. Ken is a man of many talents, and helping clients get their businesses online and traffic to those websites is just one of them. So, we've heard that Ken is a master of Yoda impersonations as well. So it just doesn't stop here. It keeps going. So we're glad to have him here at SIU. So this will be an interactive session and it will be recorded. So we do encourage you to ask questions. I'll be moderating those questions. I'll answer what I can, and what not, I will pass on to Ken. Please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of the page, and I'll call on you or unmute you too, depending on those different questions. So with that, Ken, I'll hand it over to you and get to learn all about ways to get your clients' websites looking good and traffic to them. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank everybody for attending. We've got quite a few people in here. It's like 31 at the moment, so that's exciting for me. So I put this together just trying to come up with something that, for the people who may not know a lot about web design or know a lot about search engine optimization or keyword rankings or anything like that, where they could provide feedback to their clients that the clients could then take and act upon it using that and make their websites better. So that was the intention behind putting this together. Now, when I'm looking at the screen here, Greg, I still see you. Does everybody else see me on the big screen? Or is it Greg?
I can put a spotlight on you, Ken.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. I just happen to notice that. I'd rather look at Greg than me.
no, nobody wants to see that.
So this is also going to be presented at ASBDC. In fact, it has already been recorded for ASBDC. So my first slide here still has that logo on there from that presentation. But so if you are, any of you who are attending are already very familiar with web design, already comfortable with how to review websites, there are other sessions that will be better for you, because this is pretty basic. So you are not my audience, my target market in this. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that before we actually jumped into it. So without further ado, let's get started. There we go. All right, so as Greg mentioned, we're going to talk about actionable ways to review your clients' websites. And this is what you can expect to get out of this presentation. So we're going to cover just gathering some basic information on the client's website itself, what registrations they may already have in place, what they may need to put in place, and how to do those, checking to make sure that the components of the website aren't out of date. We're going to look and check, make sure they're using Google Analytics. We're going to run a speed test on their website. We're going to look at their backlinks, their keyword rankings. Do they have a sitemap? Do they have a robots.txt page? And then I will provide you with a worksheet that will walk you through all of this step by step, so that you can work through this with your clients. You can give it to your clients, whatever you choose to do. So let's start out here by gathering some information about the website itself. So when they come in, take down their domain, and you can plug it into whois. Now you can use who.is. That's what I primarily use, and that is what is what's going to be on these slides. If for some reason that website is down, as does happen from time to time, you can do a web search. Just do a Google search for ICANN, I-C-A-N-N, and then whois or something like that, and it'll pull it up, and you can use that as well. But there is something specific to who.is that I like, which is, well, I'll show you here in just a second. So when you plug in the URL, you should get something like this, and it will show who the registrar information is, but it will show the important dates. And that will show when the website is set to expire. Now, a lot of places or a lot of people will have they have their domain and their hosting set to auto renew. But if they don't, this date, as you can see, this one's already passed, but when it passes, they can lose their website. I mean, there is a little bit of a grace period, but they can lose their domain, they can lose their hosting, they can lose all the work they've already put into it. And you've probably heard stories of that happening with different companies. I want to say Marvel, I want to say at one point lost a website and then had to pay a great deal to get it back. And you don't want that to happen to your clients because the people who are waiting to pounce on these situations, usually they want quite a bit of money to be able to get it back. So if the expiration date is approaching, just encourage them to go in and check to make sure they've got their auto renew set up, because the last thing we want is for them to lose their website. So the other information you can pull off of this, I like this. This is the only thing here that's specific to who.is. Up at the top, it'll show all of the different extensions that are available. So, throughout this presentation, I'm going to do a lot of talking about, I use awlindsay.com as an example in a lot of cases. And my wife's the director of our hometown library, and so that's her website. So that was a way for me to show you a real website with real traffic, but that without having to pull up a client's information. So you can see here that .com is taken. Well, yeah, because that's the client's website, but you can see they've got quite a few others on there. So is it worth getting additional extensions? So awlindsay.com, would it be worth getting awlindsay.net, awlindsay.org? Possibly. I mean, for anywhere from $9 to $12, some are more, but you can get an additional domain, direct it to their primary website, and help get the feedback or help bring people in that way as well. Is it necessary? No. But if your .com is still going to be king, right? So if they are using a .net, but the .com is available, I probably would recommend they go ahead and do that. In the case of the library, a lot of times people think of .org as being nonprofit organizations or governmental organizations. So it may be worth them going ahead and getting the .org. Now you look here to the right, .rocks, .news, .ninja, .social. I can't tell you I'm going to recommend that anybody gets a .ninja, but if the .com's available, it's worth it. So that just gives them a nice little list right there that shows what's taken and what's available. Also, if things are taken, you can go in and look at those websites and make sure that it's not somebody who's trying to infringe on your trademark. All right. So yeah, just $12 a year and sometimes well worth it. But .ninja is a waste of $12 a year for the most part. So if you put it in there and it shows that it is already taken, there is a little bit of information you may still be able to pull. So I've got two examples here on the right. The top one showing what it looks like when it's redacted for privacy, and people can pay to have that done. Or you can see here at the bottom one that hasn't paid for the privacy protection. So how might that be useful? Well, if you find a domain that you really want, but it doesn't look like they're doing too much with the actual website, you can maybe go on here and see who owns it. Reach out to them, see if they're interested in selling it. Certainly very viable options. Alternately, let me go back. If it is showing up as being redacted for privacy, I've had luck with just sending emails to info@, contact@, owner@, trying some of the standard email addresses that might go along with it. Again, if you're just looking to reach out and see if they might be willing to part with that URL. All right, so now we're going to look at the SSL. SSL is a secure socket layer. It has to do with the security on the website itself. SSLs used to not matter a whole lot. They really only mattered if a client was going to be, or if a website was going to be collecting information like private information or taking payments, credit cards, then they wanted to make sure that was secure. But Google changed their formula a little while ago to where they want websites to have SSLs. So if they don't have one, it will hurt their ranking with Google. They will not show up as high on the Google search rankings or search results whenever people are going there. So it is worth having. They are not super expensive. That you can get an SSL through most hosting companies. Some, like I think GoDaddy right now is charging like $75 a year. Other companies like HostGator, they actually include them whenever you get the registration or whenever you register your hosting. So I would encourage them to do a little shopping around if they don't have an SSL, but if they do, great. But this is how you tell whether or not they do. So you can go to the website itself. So say awlindsay.com or sbdc.siu.com or edu, whatever. And you should be able to see at the very top left, and actually here, I'll just show you since we're doing this live. You can see here, I am on Pingdom's website because I'm going to do the site test. And you see this little padlock right here, that lets me know they are secure. They do have an SSL. If instead of that padlock, you're getting this not secure and the little traffic sign thing here, then they are not secure. Now, does that, if it's showing up as not secure, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have an SSL. Some websites, they pay for the SSL and they never set it up to where it directs to it. And so you can actually type in this HTTPS : instead of HTTP and see if it works. If it does work, then they do have an SSL and they just need to handle the redirect. If it does not work, they don't have an SSL and they should add one. So that's a big but fairly easy thing to fix. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the registration. We've talked about the SSL. Now let's look at a couple of other things. So the first thing I want to look at here is I want to find out what CMS they're using. So CMS is a content management system. So the way I usually will describe that is if you wanted to write an essay, you could use Word, or you could use Works, or you could use WordPad or Notepad or Apple Pages, right? You've got a variety of options, and the end result is going to be an essay. So a CMS is like that. It is a program that people can use to build a website. Now, there are some that are more common, like Weebly and Wix, WordPress being the #1 most common one, and that's the one we're going to primarily focus on today. But you can use this to find out what CMS they're using. So if you go to this website and you put in, for example, AW Lindsay, it will tell you they are using WordPress. And that is probably what you're going to see. I think it's almost 60% of all websites are currently using WordPress. So we're going to focus a little bit on that because it is the most common. So if you know they're using WordPress, actually, let me go back one here, and we know what version of WordPress they're using. They're using 5.6.2. Well, 5.8 is the most current version. And I'll hit on this a little bit later, but you can literally just do a Google search for current version of WordPress, and it'll show you what it is. And so that's what I did this morning to make sure that my notes were current, and 5.8 is what they are using. So I might go to the client and say, you're using an out-of-date version of WordPress. Now, why is that an issue? Well, the biggest issue is security. With these new versions, they're updating security and plugging the holes that have existed, the security issues that have existed in the past. So that's a very easy thing to show them. Yes, you're using an out-of-date version. You should be able to update it on your website. It's free. It's very easy to do. You literally just click the update button. And that's feedback they can take right away and make their website more secure. So now that we know they're using WordPress in this case, 64.4% of websites are WordPress. I will usually check the theme. Now, I want to mention one thing about WordPress before we go any deeper into this. When I've talked to clients in the past, I've had quite a few of them tell me, well, I've heard about a lot of attacks on WordPress-based websites. And yeah, that's true. And the reason that is, and what I'll usually tell them is, if I'm a thief and I'm learning how to pick locks, and 64.4% of all locks in the world are master locks, what am I learning on? What am I practicing on? So of course that's what they're going after, because that's by far the most common. So you can go to this whatwpthemeisthat.com and plug in the URL, and it will tell you, and I'll show you here in just a second, it'll tell you what theme they're using. But before I get into that part, I want to kind of explain what a theme is. So a theme is what changes the overall look of a WordPress website. So this is a WordPress website, as is this one, and this one, and last but not least, this one. So you can see how they all change and look very different, even though they're using the same CMS, and that's done using the theme. So once we know what theme they're using, we can tell whether or not that theme is secure, whether or not it's staying updated. Just like with WordPress, themes can be out of date and therefore open their website up to more security issues. So if you look to see what theme they're using, and it'll tell you, let me see here, right there. In this case, they're using a website or a theme called SmartLine Lite. And then you can go to that homepage. Or there's a website called ThemeForest. You can go there and do a search for SmartLine Lite or whatever the name of their theme is. And it will tell you, let me go up here, down here in the lower right, it will say it's compatible with these versions of WordPress. So the one we're looking at here is compatible with 5.5 and 5.6. And as I mentioned earlier, they're at 5.8. So is this theme current? No. So what do we do in that situation? Now I'll tell you, if it's 5.6, 5.7, it probably still is fine. It's just that they probably haven't updated it with the version that just came out a few days ago, which is 5.8. But if it's older than that, here's some of the things you can do to address that situation. So you can reach out to the developer, person who made the theme, and ask them, is this theme abandoned? Is this something that you're just working on the update? If so, when do you think that update will be out? And hopefully you'll get an answer. If it is abandoned, then they have a couple other options. One, change themes. Now that's a major pain in the butt. As you saw all those different 4 websites earlier on here, I mean, it changes a great deal of information and the look of the website. So that means they're going to have to go back in and do a lot of work to make the website look the way they want it. But that's a small price to pay for keeping your website secure. Or, and this is most common in this situation, they just decide, I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to update. I'm not going to change the theme. They think it's fine to stick with an out-of-date one, and they might be. There's other security measures they can put in place to help protect their website. There are, different pieces of or the plugins like WordFence, and there's some other ones out there that can help beef up the security. That's a good idea anyways, but just becomes a necessity if they're running an out-of-date version of WordPress or an out-of-date theme. All right. So before I move on to the next thing, I know I'm hitting these topics very quickly and just kind of brushing the surface. We could talk about WordPress for weeks. Do you have any questions about anything we've talked about so far? How to check the expiration date on the domain, how to check the CMS, what a CMS is, how to check the theme, how to make sure it's all current. Any questions about that before we move on to the next thing? Okay, well then let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is a sitemap. Now, A sitemap, what it does is it tells crawlers where to look. So Google will, doesn't have necessarily a person that goes out and checks every website. They use, you've probably heard them use called crawlers or spiders, right? They're using little pieces of software that go out and they will index a website. They will look at it, they'll catalog it, put it in their searches, their search results. They'll check to make sure that it's current. They'll do a lot of more in-depth stuff. But what a sitemap does is when the crawlers hit your page, it tells them, be sure to look here. Because when the crawlers hit the page, you want to make sure that they're looking everywhere you want them to look. And that's what this does. It tells them, look here. So let's look at an actual one. And as I mentioned earlier, probably before many of you got in here, I'm running from a very wide monitor, so I don't want to make it so that you can't see things. Is that okay? Can you see that whole page? All right. So let's go to awlindsay.com/sitemap.xml. And that is, as you'll see here, whatever their client's URL is, .com/sitemap.xml. And that should take you to, eventually, a sitemap. And it tells them, in this case, and the reason I pull this up is because this is sort of different. Some of them will have multiple sitemaps. So in this case, they have a post sitemap for all their blog posts. They have a page sitemap for all their pages. And let's go there. And so this is all of the pages that exist on their website. So the crawlers hit this and they make sure to hit every single one of these. That's why a sitemap is important. So you want to check to make sure that your clients have sitemaps. But what happens if they don't? If they don't, there are multiple different places out there. And I only link to things in here that are free because I'm a big fan of free things. So if they go to xml-sitemaps.com, they can actually generate their own sitemap using that. So they go to this website, plug in their URL, and it will generate a sitemap for them, which is fantastic because then they'll know what to do. So once they've done that, they can download the sitemap. It will show them what it looks like. And then once they download it, now this is going to be the most complicated thing that we talk about today, and I'm going to talk about it twice here and when we talk about the next thing, robots.txt. They're going to download the sitemap to their computer, and then they have to actually upload it to the website. And that is done through FTP, File Transfer Protocol. Or they can go into their hosting company, and a lot of times they'll have something called a file manager or something like that in there. But either way, they should be able to get to it through their hosting company, or if they had a web designer build it, they can send it to the web designer and say, hey, upload this. And where they're actually going to put it, they're going to put it here in this public_HTML folder right here. Put it in there, upload it as sitemap.xml, and now they have a sitemap. So this part, again, is going to be the most intimidating because a lot of them won't have had any experience with FTP. If you're comfortable with it, go for it. If you're not, you can just walk them through it. You can just tell them, watch YouTube videos on it. That's how we all learn things now anyways. So very easy to do. It's just a little bit intimidating at first. All right. So we've talked about telling the crawlers where to look, but there is another file called a robots.txt file, and that tells the crawlers where not to look. So if they are doing things that they don't necessarily want the page indexed, they don't want it showing up on Google, so they've got password protected sections or members only sections or things that they don't necessarily want anybody to be able to see unless they're sent the link or anything like that. That's the kind of thing that the robots.txt file is for. So just like we took your client's URL and added /sitemap.xml, we're going to do the same thing. Client's URL /robots.txt. And it should take them to a white page with a bunch of just a list of just standard font in black like this, and it'll tell them where not to look. Now, most of the time, they're going to find this. You're going to have it. But if they don't, again, there's a great free website that has a clickable link. And I'm sorry, on this and the worksheet that I'm going to share with you, all of these links are clickable there. So you can click here and it'll take them to a website, and they can put in their URL again and hit enter, and it will generate a robots.txt file. They'll download it just like they did with the sitemap, and they will upload it just like they did with the sitemap. They will put it in that same public_HTML folder, and then it will show up on their website. So again, not too difficult, but if you have any questions, and this applies to any of this, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help if there's anything. And another thing I want to mention is that I sort of live in this world every day. So a lot of this has become sort of second nature to me over time. And a lot of times I'll use jargon without even realizing it. So if there's anything that I'm not explaining well, or anything that doesn't make any sense, please let me know. Put something in the chat, unmute yourself and ask, or you can always email me after the fact. And my email address is at the end. All right. So now let's talk about Google. So Google will find a new website eventually. They will. They're Google. But why wait if you don't have to? So when I'm a fan of going ahead and submitting a URL to Google as soon as you're ready for them to look at it. And you do all three of these steps I'm going to tell you about through the Google Search Console. So you can literally just do a search for Google Search Console, sign in, and it should take you here. You can submit the URL. You can submit your sitemap. So once their sitemap is up, or if they already have one in place, go ahead and copy that URL, and you can paste it right here under Submit the Sitemap, and that will tell Google, yes, look here. And then you can also submit the robots.txt file. All you're doing in this case is you're letting Google know, I'm ready for you to come index my site. I want you to look here, but don't look here. And that way you show up faster and higher on Google. All right, as long as we're talking about Google, let's also look at Google My Business. So you can, or they can register their business, and this is a little bit off track from the websites themselves, but it's sort of part of their online presence. So that's why I went ahead and included this. They can do a Google search for their business's name, and then they should show up over on the right, kind of like this local pizza place is. Anybody who, if you come down to Carbondale at any point, they're phenomenal. You should really try Quattro's. I love them. So as you can see over here on the right, you've got pictures. They've got a link to their website. They've got their phone number. They've got their hours. Now, if you claim your business's Google listing, you can make sure all of that is accurate. You can upload the pictures you want to upload. You can make sure that they've got the right website. You can make sure they've got the right phone number, your hours. Now, all of that you really want your potential customers to be able to easily access, it's going to be there, and you want to make sure it's right. And so that's, and I'll tell you real quickly, there's a major company that not too long ago, they must not have claimed their Google listing because some little kid's face became, right here where it says see photos, it was just this little kid's face whenever you put in this multi-million-dollar company. So it can happen. If it happened to them, it can happen to our clients. So what they need to do is go to Google My Business. Again, they can just do a Google search for that. You'll take them right to it. And then they'll put in their business's name, and it may find it, it may not. If it finds it, great, click on it, and you can claim that listing. If it does not find it, then they'll have to generate a new one. And then what Google will do is they will send a postcard, like what's here in the center with a 5 or 6 digit number on it. And then they go back into Google My Business. Once they have that, they put in that verification code to prove that they are in fact the owners. And from that point on, they have control of all of that stuff on the right, all of that information. Now, that code expires after 30 days. Now, with COVID, I know that the post office has been a little bit slower, so have them do it sooner rather than later. Because if it expires, they have to start over, and nobody wants that. All right, so now let's see. I'm sure you have all heard of Google Analytics. I would hope you've probably sat in on sessions. I've sat in on countless sessions about Google Analytics because they are so incredibly valuable. And again, free, a ton of information. So I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I've asked my clients, well, do you have Google Analytics installed on your website? They'll say, well, I don't know. Well, this is how we can check. So there's a link here. You can click on that. It'll pull this up here at the top, put in your client's URL, check the site, and it will tell you whether or not Google Analytics are installed. It will look, if they don't, it will look like this. See all of these red X's? If they do have it installed, they will be green check marks. And that is how you can tell, because again, they may not know, and it's important. So if they don't have it installed, and you can use this to check, highly recommend that they do that, because there's a great amount of information you can pull from that. Okay, so now that we've hit on Google Analytics, let's talk about the site's speed. Now, if they go to this tools.pingdom.com, and as you probably saw, that's the website I had pulled up earlier, they can put in their URL here, choose where to test from, and click Start Test. And that will do a test over to see how quick their website is. Now, this case, it's a 76. I have down here anything above a 70 is good. The higher, the better. So you want that to be as fast as possible, because people are impatient and they're not going to wait. Also, if your site's speed is low, it's also going to hurt your Google ranking. And as we've been hitting on multiple times, that's not something you want. It's very important to show up higher. So once farther down the page from there, it will show this. And I love this because it's color coded and it's got letter grades associated with it. So they have an A on the very bottom thing here, but you can see they have 3 Fs and a D. So if you hit this arrow at the right, it will show how they can make that go faster. So this is something you can literally run this. You can hit print on this page and you can just hand it to them. And if they're tech savvy, great. They can go home and make some of these changes themselves, or they can pass it right on to their web developer. But everything you do on this is going to make your website faster. And that is one of the most important things that they can do for their website. All right. There is also something called backlinks. And what backlinks are, that is when another website links to your website. And Google doesn't necessarily trust brand new websites very much. So one of the ways that you can help build credibility in a newer website, or even an existing website, but certainly this is very, very, very important for new websites, is get websites that Google does trust to link to you. Now you can go out and you can buy backlinks, but it's just in general not a good idea. Most of the time that the links that you get as a result of that, and you may have seen them, 10,000 backlinks for $20. Well, they will likely provide you with 10,000 backlinks, but they're not going to be good ones. And bad backlinks can actually hurt you more than not having any at all. So I don't recommend that, going through one of those super cheap companies. There are companies that will generate decent backlinks for you, but they're far more expensive. And there are good ways of generating them yourself. Write good blog posts and reach out to other people in your industry and see if, say, hey, I just wrote this blog post about X, and I think it would be beneficial to the people who visit your website. Would you be willing to link to mine? Or exchange links with somebody else who is in your, again, in your industry. If it's, I mean, obviously not a direct competitor, but if you can get a website to link to you and you can link to them, great. Chances are, if you're a newer website, it's going to be more beneficial to you than it is to them. But nonetheless, backlinks from reliable websites are never a bad thing. So if they go to this link here, hrefs.com/backlink checker, put in their URL, it will show them this. It will show them the domain ranking, which is out of 100. So in this, and the higher the better. So in this case, they have a 4.6, which is not good. There are 293 backlinks to this website from 151 different domains. So 293 pages linked to this website, or there are 293 links coming from 51 different websites. And we can see down here what some of these are that are linking to the website. So as I mentioned, this is for a local library. So this is Visit SI is a tourism website. So they're ranking higher. MapQuest, eRead Illinois. You can see how, some of these make a lot of sense. WorldScienceJobs.com. I don't know that makes a lot of sense, but we can see who is linking to the website and to what page they are linking. Then, actually I can keep going. We can look at the keywords. So based on certain keywords or key phrases, how are they showing up? So in this case, we might want to show up under, well, let's take an SBDC, for example. What might our keywords be? Small business help, business advice. I'm sure there's 1,000 other ones I'm not thinking of. Help me out here. What do you guys think? What would be good keywords for us as SBDCs to want to, and that's what people would be searching for, that we want to show up on their Google search for?
Entrepreneur, small business.
Grants. Yeah, Andy says it.
Yeah. Yep. All good choices. Yes, I like the grants. Free money to start a business. So what we can do is search each of those under keyword and then put our domain in, and we can see how we're showing up. So in this case, I did a search for Carterville Library, but we could do business advice or whatever. And it will show us on the AR, that is out of 600, no, that's down here. Out of 605, no, I'm sorry. I'm bouncing around here. All right, so the AR is your Hrefs rank. And the higher the, well, I'm sorry, the closer to 1 you get, the better. So in this case, we're showing up 32 million. So that's not good. We're not going to get 1, but 32 million is pretty low. The domain rank in this case being 4 for domain rating, and that is out of 100. The higher, the better. The URL ranking is the individual page on the site, the number of backlinks that link to that, the number of domains that link to that, the traffic, so how many people are visiting the website. And then the last one here is the one I started to explain earlier, the keywords. So out of the 605 million keywords that Hrefs tracks, how many of them does that website show up in the top 100? So they show up in the top 100 on 68 keywords, which is not bad. 68 out of 605 million is not great, but again, you can use this, provide it to them, and say, if you, as you do more work on your website, this is a way for them to be able to say, create a benchmark and say, this is where I was prior to me doing the work on the website. And then they come back in a month after they've done the work and see how it's changed. So I like for them to be able to track their progress, and this is a great way for them to be able to do it. All right. Let's go with that. And that is really it for me today. I feel like I've flown through it, but it's a lot of information to talk about, but I want to show you the worksheet. So this is what I use, and of course will be made available to you. So just to take an example, so let's take sbdc.siu.edu. You can plug the domain information right in here, go on .whois, find out when it's expiring, so they have that date. Other domains they want to consider, whether that's .net, .org. Also, a lot of times, it might just be something where there's a common misspelling. They have misspelled a word in the name of their business intentionally, but they're worried that people are going to spell it correctly whenever they plug it into the bar at the top of Google. So that may be something that they want to consider. If the domain is taken, there's a spot for contact information for them. Do they have an SSL? Yes or no? And again, I included the pictures so that it would be an easy reference to remember how to tell that. What CMS are they using? What version of the CMS are they using? What is the current version? What theme are they using? Does that theme work with the most current version of WordPress? And contact information for the theme developer if they're going to need to reach out to them. We can look at their registrations. Do they have a sitemap? And there's a clickable link if they don't. Do they have a robots.txt file? There's a clickable link if they don't. And then it says upload through FTP or file manager. It has the link to submit their URL to Google, tells them how to submit the sitemap, the robots.txt file to Google, tells them how to register the business with Google. Is Google Analytics installed? What's their site speed out of 100? What are the best ways to improve that? How many backlinks do they have? What keywords do we want them to show up higher in? And what is their current rank in each of those keywords? And then what site is leading in those keywords? So it's a front and back page branded to the SBDC. I can provide you with one that doesn't have our SIU's logo if you want to brand it to your own. Very happy to provide you with anything you want. I just want you to be able to give this feedback to your clients and have them, instead of it being something theoretical like, boy, you really need to work on your SEO. You can hand this to them and they have a checklist that they can go through to make their website better. Okay, so I see 40 chats, so holy cow.
We've answered quite a few of them. So I think the more recent ones here, and probably the first one to talk about, Stacy talks about most of our clients are using CMSs other than WordPress. Do you have a version of the worksheet that is more specific to some of those different platforms?
I haven't created a more universal one, but that's a great idea. I would love to know what they are using, if they're using Joomla or Drupal or Wix or Weebly or any of those, because if you're seeing trends outside of WordPress, I can make a customized one to that. But I will make one that's more standard. I mean, the only thing that's specific to it in this case is the themes. And some of those different CMSs also do have themes, so you could apply it to that as well. But again, I'm happy to do a more standard version.
Stacy talks about Wix, Shopify, and Squarespace.
Okay.
In particular in here.
And
Okay.
if I can jump in, and this is kind of anecdotal, but one of the big dividers for me is whether or not the website's going to have any e-commerce on it. And if they do, more often than not, these sort of, retail website clients of mine are definitely going to a platform like Shopify or something like that. Or, Etsy is kind of another choice, and they may do everything there. I found in a lot of ways and I've done stuff in WordPress. I'm actually more of a Drupal fan, but once clients start looking at those environments, they will look really hard at hiring somebody to build a website for them if they're not comfortable with Wix or Weebly or Squarespace. WordPress and Drupal as the next logical sort of step up to get some more functionality. Not very many of them are willing to climb that that learning curve, or that's the perception anyway.
Well, and another thing to mention about e-commerce in this case is they want to make sure that sales tax is being handled correctly, because it used to be very easy. If you were in Illinois and your customer is in Illinois, you charge them sales tax based on where you are. But then that changed, and so now most states have a 200 transactions, or I think it's $10,000. I don't know. I've got a list. When you cross either of those thresholds, then you have to worry about sales tax. And so for most of my clients, they're not going to hit that for very many states, if any, but they need to make sure that it is being charged correctly, because you know how sales tax is. If they're not collecting it, they have to pay it anyways. Any other thoughts, questions? I have really gone a lot faster. When I recorded this for ASBDC, it took me an hour. Well, I tell you what, like I say, I'm here. I'm happy to help. I will. How should I send that out? The slides and the worksheet.
Ken, this is Karen Bisoni from Illinois Wesleyan.
Hello, Karen.
Hi. So one point I just wanted to make was we're finding, this is through student interns, we're finding that conducting searches for popular hashtags and then building those into Google and the terms used or recommended to businesses and what to use for Google searches for SEO. We're finding the hashtag research really helps that. It depends upon the type of business and so on and so forth, but that is trending well anyway today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's whether we're talking about hashtags or just keywords in general, you want to make sure that they're working them organically into the text. We probably all remember back in the mid 90s, whenever we'd scroll down to the bottom and see a huge block of keywords. Well, that made sense at the time, but it does not make sense anymore. Google will actually ding them and make them show up lower for keyword stuffing, they call it. So, but yeah, I think that's a great idea, working hashtags in.
Hey, Ken, it's Stacy. I have a quick question for you.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi, I just recently heard that Google is going away from their traditional analytics and they have a different platform. Do you know anything about that? It's a different analytics, universal analytics or something like that?
I don't. Greg, do you?
Yeah, so there's two different analytics programs basically that can run on your website. Most people are still sticking with the original one because the new one is a little bit difficult to use, and Google has not indicated they're going to end support for that one yet. So you're fine either way. It's just a different way of slicing and dicing some of that data. So it's just important that you have analytics on that website so you can see the traffic that's going into the site, and you can use that to better the website, basically.
Absolutely. And as long as we're here and we're talking about Google Analytics, there's a lot of information that people can use, of course, but one of the biggest ones, ones that I think is most useful. Can you see the screen again?
Yes.
Okay. Over here on the right, it shows when the users visit. Now, theirs is fairly uniform for right now. It usually isn't. Let me pull and do, say, maybe 90 days. But it will show, and this is obviously it's not working quite right at the moment, but it will show when people are engaging with the website most often, which is really useful if, say, you're considering when to start your next social media or advertising campaign. And we can look on here and say, well, we know when people are on the website, therefore, this is a good time to put this out there. Or we're trying to increase traffic at this other time. You know, there's lots of good information you can pull from that. That's just one quick example. So Jackie says she has the slides. That she'll send it out to everyone. That would be wonderful. Jackie, do you have the worksheet as well?
I don't think so. I think you just sent me the slides.
Okay. Well, I will email that to you as soon as we're done here, so that you can, if you don't mind sending it out, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for staying with me. I know it's not the most exciting topic. I hope this is something that will be beneficial to you and helpful for your clients. Like I say, I'm always happy to help with anything you need if you want to reach out.
And so I finish off my moderator duties and don't get fired. Thank you for joining the session, and a reminder that the on-demand video will be available after the conference.
Good job, Greg. Good job.
I was hanging on by a thread there, so.
You moderators are all really showing me up. I'm glad I did my 2 and survived them, and I don't have to do any more.
We learned from you.
Great, thank you.
As a reminder, everybody can go into the lobby and the sponsor area in between the sessions, so have fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It's a little video game, run around, jump on things, and learn a lot.
That's right. Thanks all. Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right.
Great job.
So,
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
good day, everybody.